Okay, so the next step. I got my carcasses built for the most part. I had lentils last night for dinner. Oh, that one might itch. So, the front of this is a facade. Okay, so there's a 3-inch gap between the bottom of the box itself and the front of the speaker. I wanted this 28-inch height, so it matched up with the windowsill. That's just the way I wanted them, and it raised the speakers up closer to listening level for myself sitting in my chair. The other thing I wanted to do, or want to do, is I want to make the bottom removable. I want to make the bottom removable for a couple reasons. I've talked about before, and I'm going to just reiterate it because I know nobody watches my videos anyway. I want to be able to service the speakers without fighting with them. I also need some place to put the crossover, and if these things are too bassy, if they're too boomy, if they're not right, I have a good 8 inches I can fill in. So my box would only be 15 inches deep. And that would actually put me back into the parameters of the original design of the speaker, volumetrically. So I had a ton of MDF laying around, and I hate doing this kind of stuff. I hate doing this kind of part of a project, but it was really the easiest way to do it. So I went and I set up a jig, and I cut a shit ton of these 3x3-inch squares. I know they're a little big, but my experience with this type of thing is whenever you're using MDF, you really don't want to go too small. So I set up a jig. I cut all these into 3x3-inch squares. I set up another jig to square them all up, stacked them all, glued them all, and then pinned them together. So I have these feet now, which are, they weigh probably a pound or two. Again, I want these speakers to be god-awful heavy. I want them to be so heavy that they won't jitterbug around on the floor. Light speakers that aren't properly mounted will move. Trust me, I know, I've done it. So the other thing I bought to keep them from jitterbugging around is these spikes, these speaker spikes. So they have the least amount of contact with the floor. So they're actually pretty cool, and they are somewhat adjustable. I can adjust them maybe a couple turns here and there, maybe put a drop of Loctite on them. These are about half an inch. These are 3 inches. I have about 3.5 inches from here to here. So the way these are going to work, the other thing is I have 4 of them. Theoretically, I only really probably want 3 points of contact, but I have 4. I had 4 things, so I'm going to go that route. So now I've got 4 feet underneath the speakers. I can screw in, drill and screw in for the inserts, because they have these screw-in inserts that you thread in and then glue. I've used them before for other projects, and then we'll put the spike in there, and that'll bring these about 3/8 of an inch off the floor. I want them as close to the floor as I can get them without them actually physically touching the floor, because I don't want the dog to be able to knock stuff underneath of them. I could have cut the facade back and then made a taller base. The problem is that it's about the same size as my dog's favorite ball and/or bone, and I guarantee what would happen is he would knock the bone or the ball underneath the speaker, and then he would sit there and try to get this, try to move the speaker, or who knows, dogs, right? So that's where we're at. These blocks, like I said, are all screwed together. They're all glued. I originally had screwed the very first one together, and I'm like, that's kind of a waste of screws when I have pins and they're glued. So MDF loves glue, so I just glued them together using Type Bond 3, and I made the base so it fits in here. The one thing I am going to have to do is I'm going to have to put a couple more, just 2 or 3 more screws in the bottom here to hold this in place, and then gasket this. Again, so I can access the bottom of the speaker if, for whatever reason, maybe in the future I might want to put another driver in here, or change the crossover, or whatever. So instead of dealing with the hole in the front, I can deal with a large access door in the bottom. The chances of me doing that are probably 0, but you know, if you're going to overbuild something, you might as well do it, you know, Uncle Fezzy style, as overbuilt as you possibly can make it. And you know, that's the way I'm overbuilding these. So there you go, that's the bases. I'm not going to go, obviously I saved you the you know, the artsy fartsy bit of me, you know, cutting all the pieces of wood and shit like that. That's just stupid. If you can't figure that out, this video is not for you. So the next step is I'm going to grab my center finder here, and I'm going to mark all these, center find all these, and then I'm going to insert the thread certs, and I'll put the thread certs in. The other thing I'm going to do before I finish the outside of these, before I sand them, before I do anything else with these cabinets, is I'm going to paint them black. I have some black latex, charcoal, whatever paint that I've used for years. So the back of these are going to be painted black. The other thing I need to do is I need to install the contact lugs. And another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sign and date the inside of these. With what they are, you know, the chances of these speakers not getting thrown into a dumpster the day I die is pretty low. The chances are these are going to go right in the fucking trash. But it is what it is, right? Leave some kind of legacy. Another thing I'm probably going to do is inside of here, I'm going to paint the hole underneath of these black. So I'm going to take some caulk, and I'm going to caulk this joint here to kind of A, stabilize it, but B, to just kind of make it look like my joinery didn't suck as much as it actually did. So the next video will be, you'll see these will be painted and finished and all that. Okay, now we're at another step in the project here. So the carcasses are all complete. They're all complete. They're all glued. You can see here I got a little bit of, I put a little bit of filler in the seams because I'm a shitty carpenter. The thread certs are in the feet. One of the things I'm gonna have to run. Whoopsie. Didn't expect that to happen. I'm gonna have to run a tap through these. And it wasn't, so the tap wasn't just because I got glue in them. The tap is because, for whatever reason, the threads didn't want to start on the little spikes things. So, if you care, it's a 6/100 tap. That's what the threads are on those standard metric tap. If you don't have a tap, then this project is probably above your skill set. So the other thing I did here, and I thought, you know, it's probably a pretty decent idea. One of the things that the speaker kit didn't come with, and it really irritates the shit out of me, like absolutely irritated the shit out of me with this kit, and I didn't realize it when I started the kit, but there are 2 things that it didn't come with that, you know, if anybody from Parts Express is listening, which I highly doubt, it didn't come with any hardware at all to put the speakers in with. It's supposed to be a speaker kit. They sell hardware. I don't understand why it didn't come with, you know, 16 or, you know, 8. Yeah, why didn't it come with, you know, 16 panhead screws and 8 countersunk screws? It should have, at minimum. So I went down to my local Woodcraft. I didn't actually have any black screws, believe it or not. to do this project with. So I actually had to go to Woodcraft and pick up some screws. Why would Home Depot sell black screws? These are black oxide. So I bought a box of 8 Type 17 auger point with nibs, countersunk screws. Now these are Phillips, and then I bought these, which are button heads with a built-in washer, but they're square heads. The only thing I got going for me is that you can't actually see, once the once the speaker grates are in, you won't ever see the screws, because they're black. If I was to use the gold ones that I've been using to assemble the project with, you would see them. And I don't want to see that. That's kind of silly to me. The other thing it didn't come with was spade connectors. And my extensive experience with car installation and with speaker installation in general is you can't just go to Home Depot or even an auto parts store and buy the correct size spade connectors. They're always a funky size. It should have come with spade connectors. I'm going to get the right ones. I don't have them right now for the actual speakers. But the whole reason I wanted to shoot this little piece of the video is I pre-drilled these holes for the speakers, and I'm going to pre-thread them before I finish anything, before I do anything, because again, my extensive experience with screws and speakers is your possibility of jamming this power screwdriver into a woofer is really fucking good. Like, voice of experience. Yeah, I get a lot of shit from people because I overbuild, I over-engineer, I overthink things. It's not because I'm overdoing it. It's because experience has taught me that it only takes literally 1/10 of a second, if not less, 1,000th of a second, to drive a screw into a hole, especially one that's never had a screw driven into it, and have that screw or the bit or the screwdriver go right through the speaker, and then you're out of speaker. It only takes a minute to do this. The other reason I'm doing it now, that got heavy. The other reason I'm doing it now is I have jammed the screwdriver into the wood. So if I was to finish these whole cabinets and then go to put it together and jam the screwdriver into this is all going to be exposed, my nice clean wood, well then I got to fix that after it's already been finished. So before you finish the cabinets, I highly suggest doing that. Well, there you go. Hey, I forgot to hit record. Luckily enough, I didn't miss any. You didn't miss anything. What I did was I ran the screw into all these holes. The other thing I had to do, or one of the other things I did, was I actually ended up throwing the screws away because they got dull really quick, so I just canned them. This cherry's not super hard, but it definitely is hard enough to screw up a screw. So what I was saying in the last video, which I forgot to hit record on, is I'm going to flip these over. Like that. And I'm going to lightly sand these, like real light, like 220, just by hand, maybe even a red Scotch-Brite, mainly just to knock some of the MDF gets a lot of boogers on it, and I want to sand that PX3 or P3X adhesive is not paintable in any way, shape, or form. So what I'm going to end up doing is sanding this off. If I try to paint over this, the paint's going to fisheye like crazy. I learned that the hard way. I actually tried to scrape some of it off already, and it didn't really want to come off. So I like the PX3, but it definitely does not like to be painted. So keep that in mind if you're a slob like me. So I'm going to get my sander out, which actually I do. I got it out. This is an 8-inch geared DA. This thing is a monster. I actually never had one when I worked in the body shop business because none of the people that I worked for would splurge for the cost of the sandpaper. Each one of these pieces of sandpaper costs like $3 or $4. So I'm pretty, I try to be pretty damn careful with it. But there's just a bunch of stuff. I need to deburr it. I want to sand this down. I actually might get my other sander out because it's a little bit smaller, a little bit easier to handle. So I want to sand this all off here, and then I'm going to paint the back black. I'm going to paint the bottoms black, and maybe I'll do the inside too. Who knows? Whatever I have left over. Once I get a paintbrush dirty, I just keep going. I do think I'm going to brush it. The other thing I am going to do is I'm going to tape off the edges here. But I am going to paint. I'm probably going to paint this black, but I'm going to caulk it first. So I'm going to caulk this joint, and then paint this black, paint the base black, paint inside of here black. And then I'm going to tape this off. I'm going to actually put a nice little line either here, which is actually where I'm probably going to put it. So it's all black on the back side. Now that I'm looking at it, I may just put a piece of tape here. I'm just going to tape off the edge and I'm going to paint the whole back.